They want attacking, purposeful football all the time. Now we've got our backs against the wall and we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. You've got to show me all the guts and all the determination you've got in your body. You've got to inspire me.
A marvellous kick. That's as good as you'll ever see. And Footscray are back in front.
I don't know about you guys, but if I see one bloke walking out of here, give the pat on the back from people out there for a good effort, I'll spew up.
From inside the centre square, boys kick the goal. Boys kick the goal. From inside the centre. I can't believe that.
Hey Pack, welcome to Danny Boyd. It's a podcast about that football club that we all love, the Footscray Football Club, Proprietary Limited. They trade as Western Bulldogs. I'm Danny McGinley. Tom Boyd, happy birthday.
Thank you very much to you as well.
Yeah.
You turned 41.
Saturday.
28. Oh, it's all over, Danny. It's all over.
Yeah, 28. You must be finally getting proper hangovers.
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. But what I will say is that I had a great joke for my dad. I don't know if I've told you this, but I just decided this year I just want one gift because it's too hard and I need new boots. So get me some nice RMs, and across every person who's obliged to give me a gift of some kind, split it between everyone.
That's how you do it.
It's like $50 a head.
How much are boots?
$600.
Dead set.
Yeah, they've gone up. Because they're still Australian owned, mate. Because what's his name? Was it
Twiggy Forrest?
No, Hugh Jackman bought it, I think, or Eric Banner. One of the Australian big actors bought it to bring it back to Australia.
Yep, right.
Because it was offshore or sold offshore for a second there. Anyway, and I sent that through to the family group, and individually, my dad, who's currently away in WA caravanning with my mum, sent through a message to each of the family members individually that said, "Hey guys, it's my birthday in March. Make sure you get the right colour." And he sent a photo of a brand new Land Cruiser to make me feel bad about asking for such an expensive gift. It was some comedic gold from my father. And it was like the new sand, like tan-coloured Land. It was, mate,
Looks good.
It was so funny.
It'll be camouflaged in the desert. Well, okay, speaking of very funny family members, I did not watch the Geelong game live. I'm sorry to say.
So you haven't seen us win a game live in Geelong for about 45 years.
Since 2003. Actually, I didn't even watch that game. I was working. God, I'll tell you the last time I saw us win a game at Cardinia Park when I was there live in 1999. And I'm never going back because I'm 1 win, 0 losses.
Yeah, I think I won a game against Vic Country there in 2012, and that was the last time I won a game down there.
There you go. We're never going back. No. So, because it was my birthday, on Saturday, on the actual day, my wife and I went up to Brisbane for a weekend away without the kids.
Wow.
It was awesome. It was brilliant. And because I'm a Virgin Air
you've got to say the word after Virgin.
I do
quickly
because I fly a lot. I'm a Virgin Velocity Platinum member, and that gives me Hilton Diamond membership. Wow. So I got upgraded to like the best.
You get internet on the plane for free.
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Economy X, which is not business, and
it's not as good as the emergency exit row I've found.
No, it's definitely not. No, I was pretty cramped as well. Anyway, and my wife's pampering me. Like she goes, "Hey, go sit by the pool. I know where there's a great rib joint. I'm going to go get takeaway, and I will bring you ribs to eat by the pool." And I'm like, "Yes, this is good. This is good." And then she pulls out a little bottle of fancy whiskey, and she goes, "Have some of that. Have some of that." And I go, "Sweet." And she goes, and we'd sort of talked about would I watch the footy that night, and she goes, "Look, hey, don't watch the footy. I don't want you to get angry. I don't want you to be annoyed on your birthday. We can watch the replay if they win."
Such high thoughts of how the Dogs were going to go.
I know. She just knows what I'm like, and she goes, "I tell you what," and I'm like, "Oh, but I kind of, I probably should for the podcast there." And she goes, "What if I told you I'll take you to a strip club?"
Whoa!
And I'm like. And there's such a male thing when a heterosexual male thing, when your wife's about to do something unexpected romantically and sexually, you're a bit sort of like, okay, you freeze because like you can only ruin it. So it's like, don't move, don't do anything that could destroy this moment. I'm like, yeah, okay, yep, sounds great, yep. done. And she goes, great. And then, we're having, had a few beers in the afternoon by the pool. And then she said, we'll go get dinner at this Irish pub. You love those? I'm like, yeah, sweet. I did that. Had a couple of Guinnesses, and I'm feeling great. And then she marches up. We're in the valley, and we go into this nightclub establishment. Mm-hmm. And we get there, and she goes, "Go get the drinks. I'll get us a table." And I'm like, "Okay, sweet." And I got the table, and I'd had a few, wasn't really focused, and I'm looking around, and I grabbed the drinks, and it's only when I sat down and looked at the stage where the sign of the show was on, Magic Men, that I realised what she'd pulled. So I was at a male strip show.
The Magic Mike spin-off.
The Magic, yeah. And look, it was a nice little the story. There wasn't much of a story to the strip show. One guy came out at one stage dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. Oh. And and then he took the pirate gear off and he was all muscles under. Is Johnny Depp really the person that women are wanting to fantasize about?
It's like the art and the artist bit at that stage. Isn't it? But how did when you worked it out? What did you say to your wife?
I just laughed. I was like, oh, well played. Because
I feel like up until that moment, she just watched American Pie and she'd been like, what do blokes want in their life? Ribs, whiskey, pubs, and
nudity.
Yeah.
That's actually very accurate of my life.
Yeah, that was great.
And it was fun. So, and I did watch a little bit of the footy at times because there were some breaks.
I don't. You didn't miss that much. Like, we did win, which was good.
Yes, I have since watched definitely the last quarter.
Yeah, which was the better part of the game because the rest was a bit like, what's going on here? This is going to be the same stuff we've dealt with. Every time we've gone down to this cold, wet, and windy place.
Because even though I wasn't watching, I was checking the scores every 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
And man, just that second quarter, I was like, oh, this is shocking.
I don't know whether it was just years of torment being beaten down there, but even with Tom Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron and half their team, either old or injured, like, I still didn't feel very confident that we were going to win for whatever reason.
I think Isaac Smith, pulled beer, did some beers at quarter time.
Yeah, well, he kicked a few goals. He kicked the first goal. He might have kicked the second.
Out. Yeah,
and then he was like, it's all done. I've got my moment. I can show this on the highlights of my career.
Yes.
In the last game, we kicked the first goal, but it was I would say very accurately portrayed that we should win that game and then not make finals for the year. It was like that was the round summed up where we didn't play that well. We beat a team that we should beat and had lost to earlier in the year quite convincingly. Actually, I was at
but that was their reserves team as well.
That's right. And then we go in and our arch nemesis, the GWS Giants Football Club, beats Carlton, who are supposed to be like the hottest team in the comp, and has been in the paper every other day saying, can the Blues recreate the Bulldogs' fairy tale run from 2016?
Well, they're on brand. They've lost their last game very disappointingly.
Yeah, well, that too. But also, we didn't have a bloke who kicked 80 goals playing for us. We also...
we didn't have any number one draft picks that we tanked for.
And to be honest, we'd also been, in my opinion, at least over the course of that year, much more consistent than the Blues had been. We'd had a lot of good wins.
That's true. You do watch the Blues a lot closer than most Bulldogs fans due to your family loyalties.
Well, disloyalty in some sense. I watch it to basically go, at what stage of this game do I get to text my dad, sister, mum, and other sister and say, it's tough being a Blues supporter, isn't it?
None of them go for the Dogs. That is just, I can't believe that.
Yeah, I mean, Dad's definitely aware, of what the dogs are doing. I mean, Mum's probably, she's Danish, so her understanding of football is more as a fan, as opposed to, Dad played enough footy and coached enough footy to have some understanding of what the game plan is.
Yeah.
But as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, he's still sucked into the whole, they must be training hard at the moment.
That's
at
true.
The end of the season, and
Well, this is actually a theme, I think, for the episode. We don't know. We open this up on our social media. Ask us anything. All the fans are scrambling right now. Being a footy fan is like being on a roller coaster. Of course, there's ups and downs, but I'm talking more. You've got no control. We don't know. It is being run by a carny with a mullet in the corner, pressing a button and laying, just praying that what an engineer did ages ago is going to work out well. And right now, the carriage, what do you call a roller coaster? A cart? The train?
Carriage, I think.
Carriage, we'll go carriage, is fallen off and we are careening to the ground. And normally we would just be, okay, cool, we're about to crash for a bit and we'll get back on soon and very slowly climb up. Yeah. But the last time
all of the passengers will be gone, but we'll bring some new passengers
we're
and do a bit of maintenance.
Because the last time we careened towards the ground at this speed, we suddenly landed on a different bit of track and went to the very top where we'd never been before.
Yep.
So,
and we sort of made it home safely that year at least. I don't agree. But I saw questions about the 2014. I feel that you got to remember what happened that year. There was more significant change that year than is currently going on. The coach was gone. The captain was gone. We had change in the execs. We had no money.
All within a week, though.
Yeah.
This is at the very end.
But everything takes time, right? So the coach didn't get sacked because he was in a week, as is very well publicised. Months earlier when I met with them, and my dad looked at Brendan McCartney and said, hey, Brendan, Jason McCartney's going to be here for a few years. Peter Gordon's here for a few years. At that stage, Simon Garlick's going to be here for a few years. How long are you going to be here for, Brendan? He looked my dad straight in the eye and he said, I've got 2 more years, so I'll be here 2 more years.
Oh, wow.
3 months later, it was all over.
He was gone. But do you remember? Okay, I want to educate you a little bit on where we were as a club back then. 2008, 9, 10, make prelims.
Yep. Very big fan of those teams.
Yes.
Loved watching them. 11
disaster. That fell off the roller coaster. It went down on the roller coaster.
Is that the end of the Barry Hall era?
Yes.
2011, basically?
Yes. So, he played 11 and he played 10 and 11, maybe a bit of 12. I don't think 12. I think it was just 10 and 11. Then, we go down, miss finals. 12, 12, there was the second half of the season, we would score 1 goal in the second half. It was just rebuild. 13, we're terrible. What people forget, we were awesome at the end of 13. We won 6 games in a row and only just missed finals. And so start of 14 was actually pretty optimistic.
And that would have been the 4th year or 3rd or 4th season for the Wallaces and the Libbers and the father-sons that had come in. And Hunter had been the year after.
Yep.
No, Hunter was 2 years after Mitch. So you'd had all these young players. And, at that stage, that was the big media part because we had Pico, obviously the 2 boys, Libber and Wallace, and they also had Hunts come in that was this is a family club.
Yes.
And there was so much optimism. But I remember 2014, there was a lot of negative press about the Bulldogs a lot of that year, even from Sydney. And I wasn't paying attention to that much because I'd just obviously come into the league and there was enough to worry about.
Yeah.
But I do remember so vividly beating... playing for the Giants in Gia's last game at the end of 2014.
Oh, yeah, you bastard. Yes.
And Devon Smith kicking a goal that put us up by 6 points with 25 seconds to go or something like that.
Yep.
And that was a bit of a because at that stage, the Giants and the Gold Coast Suns were still coach killers in a way, right? If you lost to the Gold Coast Suns or the GWS Giants, it was you just lost to a bunch of kids.
And I know a lot of people were very depressed after that game because that was very much cool, we've rebuilt at the worst possible time. Because, collapsing at 2011, I remember saying, this is the worst possible time because all the draft picks are going to GWS and Gold Coast. This is the dumbest thing we could have possibly done. And that game seemed to solidify it.
Yeah.
So, we were, it does feel a bit end of 2014.
A little bit. I mean, again, 2012, you guys still managed to find McRae, Stringer and Hunts in one draft.
Yep. We had Dalrymple back then.
Yeah, 2013, obviously the greatest player, in my opinion, that will ever play for the Dogs in Bont came through.
Mm-hmm.
And yours truly, who didn't get drafted to the Bulldogs, but eventually in some weird turn of events ended up there 12 months later.
Did they try and draft you, or it was always just going to the Giants?
Yeah, I think there was probably 3 clubs who were interested. I think it was Carlton, Bulldogs, and someone else. Because I was a year before Curnow and Mackay and all that, so they were looking at getting there. I think maybe the Saints.
Actually, I do remember one of my mates talking, who talked, seeing you through the draft and everything. You go, I think GWS will give him up. I don't think GB, we could get this Tom Boyd kid because
Would've cost
he
you more
thought Buddy
than-
was going to GWS. Like, why would they have to?
One of the greatest hoodwinks of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
that trade. I still, to this day, I'll never lose respect for my manager for pulling that off with no one knowing.
Anyway, let's not.
Let's acknowledge what today is, because today is a very This is the day. So for all of those of you who don't know, this is the behind the scenes sort of cycle of what happens this week. So in a really good year, which I guarantee they booked the best and fairest to post the grand final this year, because they always do that.
Yep.
And they have done, which is a good sign because the club's optimistic. Bad sign in the sense that you've now got a month between what happens today, which is the reviews and delistings get announced usually today. Now, I'll provision that by saying there'll be a lot of players, and I'm not 100%, I'm not 1,000% sure they're doing it today, but they do it basically the Tuesday. So you can imagine you're walking in from a disappointing end to the season, a Mad Monday typically. So you got a sore head, a sore body.
No, you don't do Mad Monday on the actual Monday, do you?
Yep, usually.
What?
Almost always. I mean, I never did it any other day.
How are you going to enjoy Mad Monday knowing you have? Surely it's called Terrible Tuesday.
Yeah,
the next day.
Well, and you know, I remember so many boys, especially my first year. I mean, because that year I think was Ace Cordy and a couple of other boys got delisted, and you know, we had the Mad Monday, and they all basically, you know, either came for an hour because they wanted their wits about them the next day. You know, they wanted to be sharp because that year in particular, and I don't think they ever did it since, but that year, all of the guys got delisted. We interviewed first or reviewed first, and it was at like 7 a.m.
Oh, so you get told when you're coming in.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious because it was Daniel Pearce who was really close with me.
Yep.
And he ended up getting re-rookied, I believe. Sorry, Pearce, if I'm misremembering this. Ace Cordy and then a couple of other guys. And they were at 7 till 8. And then everyone looked at it and they were like, okay. And then it was like young guys and then sort of, you know, mid-years and then the older guys later in the day.
The whole point of Mad Monday, though, was to absolutely obliterate yourself.
Yeah, well, that typically speak. I mean, a lot of clubs have changed because, you know, I wasn't a massive fan of the whole dress up thing, but then some clubs do it so well. I was looking at the
Geelong were good.
Geelong did a great one this week, right?
Yeah.
Which is that they did the 2 goalposts and the umpire and the Adelaide player whose goal got overturned.
I was
Keys.
talking more the Brian Myers and Jared Waitley tweet.
Oh, that was great too.
With
So
Lionel
these
Messi.
are 2 very, and I appreciate that they're confident enough to be topical about, you know,
Yes.
let's make it league.
It's like
league-specific.
a good banner. Topical. People always respect topicality.
Yeah,
more than,
for sure. And that's what people care about. Like, at least this person didn't make them all up at the start of the year and then just be like, oh, this is what we're doing. So again, today's a really tough day for a lot of players. And when they get informed,
Surely I'm getting caught up on this. Surely then you want the Mad Monday to be on the Wednesday. So then, like, you know, it's your last hurrah, your last time being with these your brothers who you've been with all year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the footballers take, you know, titles very, you know, literally, but this one, for whatever reason, they do. So Mad Monday's on the Monday. It's
when I take over the club, I'm changing that.
Is this you announcing?
Yes.
But the other thing that's, you know, is quite challenging is now I at least as I understand it, based on the last few years, I don't have any inside word. I imagine that the best and fairest is in a month. So you got all these guys who've got the choice to either not turn up or turn up for one last hurrah, or feel like they've been mistreated or not mistreated. And it's like, and some of them will still probably be in the mix for a trade. It's really tough to do it that far down the track. Whereas if you do the best and fairest straight after the season finishes, which by the way, they don't, because it's a cost thing, right? Because if you want to book Crown and the club sell 1,000 tickets or more, then you can't just like be like, oh, you know, Jimmy boy, Mr. Packer, can you let us in on like a Wednesday? So, it's a tough time for the club, and this is the start of the cycle of basically, you know, there'll be 3 buckets of players that'll go in. There'll be the ones who get delisted. There'll be the ones who got told that, hey, this next year's a big year for you, and there'll be the ones that said, oh, you've had a good year this year, and we want to see you build on it next year.
How often? Which buckets were you in? You were never delisted.
I was always in the like, hey, you need to improve next year bucket.
Okay.
But having said that, you know, like this is the problem with reviews, and we like funnily enough, in my other work, we talk about this all the time. Is when you look at a stationary period of time and you try and capture 12 months, it's impossible because there's not enough measurements along the way to be like, oh, they were good this week, they were bad that week. The club kind of knows. But essentially, the only efficient way to do this for 45 players with 5 coaches or whatever it is in the room is to go, here's your averages, here's how many games you played, here's how many got, like, it's just static information.
Yeah.
And I remember in 16, I'd played my best season of footy, but it hadn't been perfect, and I'd had all these injuries and everything, and they were just like, best year ever, you want a flag. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of true, but at the same time, it wasn't helpful or wasn't insightful to be like, oh, these are the areas to improve on for next year, and I had surgeries coming up. So it's just it can just be a session where players just get beat up by the coaches, essentially.
And can you give any back? You're like, well, no.
one on 5.
Yeah, exactly. Did you go to Mad Monday or Best and Fairest the year you retired?
Did I go to them? I don't know. Yes, I think so, because I think I got announced life member at the Best and Fairest.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think, because I had to speak, and they invited me, and they didn't tell me what it was for, and Peter Gordon was there, and Mitch Wallace spoke for me, and all this sort of stuff. It was really nice, but they didn't tell my parents what was going on. So my parents were in the air going to Europe. And as I did my speech, I'm like, I'll thank everyone. And then I'm like, I suppose I should thank my parents, but they're midway to Singapore at the moment. So they were a bit sad that they weren't there for that, because they'd obviously, it was a bit of a tough position. They would have only found out late, if they found out at all. And then they were traveling to my uncle's birthday or whatever. So, I think it was my grandma's 85th birthday. But the Best and Fairest is such a difficult time, and there are players over the course of the history that basically get told either don't come or you have to come, and it's messy. And this is the thing, for fans out there, I saw this thing that Treloar said after the West Coast game on his podcast, and he was saying, I understand the fans criticising the game and the game plan and the performance of the players, but when you get into the character of the players, it just doesn't make, one, you should never do it, and two, it doesn't make any sense, because these guys aren't trying to play bad. And I totally agree, but in the same position, the club, doesn't take that into account when they go, you're just expected to turn up to these certain things, even if you're not sure you have a contract, or if, character and people get forgotten about all the time in this time of year, because unless you're playing finals, no one cares,
Yeah.
So I think, there will be a large percentage of players who get told they need to improve next year, because that's what happens when the club, doesn't get to where they want to get
I think
to.
we can name the players who won't get told that. It'll be Bontle, Libba,
Tim. But they'll say to Tim, your last 6 games of the year wasn't your best.
Oh, man.
Because he had, I remember seeing every week he'd have 20-something disposals, and sort of the back end of the year probably had quite a few less.
If you know that you're going to leave, according to rumours, Bailey Smith and Tim English are, and God forbid that happens, we of course want them to stay. But if you're in that 5 coaches are going, can you just go, stuff yous, I'm off to North Melbourne?
I mean, you can really do whatever you want, but the problem is, both of those boys are contracted. So, there are trades, very recently, of significant players who are now no longer at the club, who basically the club said, we're not going to trade you out of spite because you didn't do this process properly. So, that's happened many a time. And then the difficult position is that, the bird in hand is worth two in the bush. The issue with having a contract promised to you, and this is something that I almost went through, which is, we'll revisit this, groundbreaking contract and hope it doesn't leak over the next 12 months. It's no guarantee that happens. None. And so much can change in 12 months. So when the club goes, hey, to Dunks, we're not going to trade you. Well, it changed where he was going to go, because from all accounts, he was going to Essendon or something like that. Then he ended up north. So I think it is such a hard period of time. But the other thing is, we look at these players and go, oh, these are AFL footballers earning lots of money. They're 22, 23 years old. I would consider myself relatively mature for a 28-year-old. And especially in the sense that I can sit in rooms with people who are considered important and be like, I'm not doing that. Or, but I couldn't do that when I was playing. I was terrified. And I was talking to an ex-teammate of mine during the week about, so many of ex-players, when they're thinking about talking about the club, and I've done this many a time, where I don't want to abuse the club, or I don't want to make the club look bad, and I don't want to talk, in specifics about what the club should do, because I'm not there and I don't know enough information. But the reason we do that is because from the age of about 15, if you're involved in the state programs, you're taught to toe the line, never have an opinion, keep going. And it has changed a little bit with social media, because obviously these players are sharing who they are more. But at the end of the day, the confidence to go in and say, oh, you guys are full of shit. like, you've said this to me all year, and this is not a specific example. You've said this to me all year, and you've told me to wait and do this and improve here, and you still haven't picked me all year, and now you're telling me that I had a rubbish year. Well, I did what I was supposed to do, and you just weren't transparent with me. No one does that. Like, it's too scary, and you don't have enough leverage to go, oh yeah, I'm just going to go somewhere else because it's easy.
Even though I think we both agree there would be players who could definitely be saying that in this meeting.
Well, and in many ways they should be, and I think the difference between players who some players who make the most of their careers and others who don't is the courage to stand up, which is, by the way, incredibly difficult given that these guys are literally like a mix of God and your dad. Because in terms of like what they represent to you. But some players who have the courage to stand up and go after what they want, they get better outcomes. And I've said this before in this podcast, and I'll say it again. It's like nice guys finish last in the AFL unless they're the absolute best players in the team.
Bond.
Well, yeah, exactly. But Bond's the best player in the team,
yeah, exactly.
So it's fine.
So
the players who are in the middle who don't have they don't have a bit of grunt and fight and, they want to do things right, well, that's fine. But then people just presume you're going to keep doing that so they don't value you. And that's what AFL football is all about. Just trying to find value.
All right. Well, we said we'd put it up to the questions now of everyone, and there's been a lot. Ultimately, a lot of them are very the same. Like
constructive, but they want answers.
It's just scrambling. Who leaves? Who comes in? What do we do at the draft? What happens with coaching and coaching staff? Us, Shannon Hall. I mean, the brutal, honest answer is we don't know. We're not in the full walls. We don't know what players would suit the game plan, what coaches would suit the game plan, what the game plan is, if it's a static thing or is it something that's malleable? We don't know how toxic the change room is at the moment. It looks pretty bad from the outside, but we don't know. And we're not going to patronise you with speculation. I mean, we'll save that for Footy Classified. If you want Kane Corns to tell you that everyone should be sacked, sure, you can do that, but that's not really what Danny Boyd does.
In 1 week, categorically, Tom Morris came out and said Bailey Smith's not leaving. And then
Tom Morris is still around? Or do you mean Tom Brown?
No, Tom Morris. He's back. He's back, is he? Yeah. And then the other side of the coin was Caro said last night that he's gone.
So
it's like, and look, I would say to everyone that there's a very specific cycle that clubs go through. The cycle for planning about what's to come next, and that's at every level. That's coaching, that's executives, that's change of lists, that's change of people and personnel. It's everything. Doesn't happen until the reviews happen, because the review is, first the players go through it, then the coaches go through it, and then in some way, shape or form, my guess would be that Luke and the coaching staff need to present back to the board or whatever about what the season was in the next couple of weeks.
And when do we get, as the members, as the shareholders, when do we get to review the board?
You'll just see the decisions being made. Yeah,
that hurts.
Yeah,
that hurts in this democratic society.
Yeah, I feel like so much of what I've learned in the last little while is like half of the battle is just selling the right story, and I don't mean the story's made up, but it's just trying to make sense to both the players and the coaching staff and everyone who's involved in the club internally, but also to the fan base. What's actually where are we at in the roller coaster? Yeah. Are we looking at changing things drastically? And there's never a moment this is the reason why they don't share that story, is because they don't want to be held to anything if things don't turn out the way that they intended.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like the chaoticness that comes from the end of the season, and a season that was disappointing by every metric, is that everyone wants the solution. And unfortunately, the solution is something that gets developed over time, not one that has...
But it wasn't. In 2014, we got a solution straight away.
Yeah, but
let's do that again.
Yeah, but of course, you guys weren't there for every moment of every preseason session and every training session together and the camps away and the preseason. Like, there's just so much that goes into that becoming something that works. And, I remember talking to a friend of mine who shall remain nameless, who was, we were talking about Damien Hardwick leaving, right?
Yep.
And, the likelihood of him going to the Gold Coast at the time, which obviously is just being confirmed. And I was like, it's tough to sell. Like, I said my opinion at the time was get him to take 1 year off.
Yeah.
As in, and mate, they will come screaming and clawing. There'll be 15 clubs on the market who wants a coach.
Well, that's the amazing thing. Like, everyone just wants a proven coach. I mean, there's people, a lot of the questions we got are, how do we get Stuart Dew? It's like, Stuart, what? As an assistant, mostly. But Stewie Dew's had a pretty underwhelming time at Gold Coast.
I think everyone who goes to the Gold Coast is going to have an
It is, yeah.
overwhelming time.
Sorry, Dimmer.
But the Dimmer thing, and then the pushback my friend gave me was, but like Dimmer's whole thing is that he's so prepared and he's had all these stories, and coaches have all these stories what they tell over and over again about why this game's important, what the theme is, so on and so forth. What they've learned from other people who've been successful, like most of them are real students of like sport and high performance.
Yeah, and those self-help books. And,
all that stuff, and like the whole, as our fans know, like the domestique story, like what is that important, and why do we have that voted every week and rewarded at the end of the year, the best and fairest? And my friend said, well...
Hang on, there might be people who don't know what the domestique is.
So the domestique is essentially a role that's utilised in team cycling.
Yes.
So in the Tour de France or whatever, there's the domestique, which essentially their job is to set the pace, break the wind, give up their glucose, capsules or whatever, if their lead rider needs it. It's just a purely fall on the sword to enable the fastest rider to win.
Yes.
And that's what Cadell used to be. So he was a domestique first, and then he ended up being the team lead.
Cadell Evans.
Yeah.
Australia's Tour de France winner. And then the Bulldogs brought this in as a...
Don't
player.
reward the best player. Reward the player who does the most for the team.
Yes.
And it's morphed a bit over time. But
And to give the best example of who are the four...
Libba would be a perfect example. Liam Pickin.
Well, I was going to say,
Clay
who were the
Smith.
4 domestique winners of the 2016 final series? They're the games that...
I think I won 2.
You did
and
win
then, Pico won 1 and Bont won the other, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember you and Pico
something
were
like that.
once. But you were grand final?
Grand final and prelim.
And prelim.
Yeah.
So there you go, people. Like... The tomboys of those matches.
Yeah, and
is who we're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose there's that it's the difference between who gets voted the most best and fairest votes and who gets voted best on ground from a domestique. They shouldn't be the same player. But what my friend was saying was, now he gets to repurpose every single one of those stories that he's come up with over the years to new people. And, I was like, that makes so much sense because it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting. And the challenge with Bevo is that he's been here 10 years. How many new stories has he had? How many ways can he respin what he's got and to re-energize and, reinvigorate his team because they've all heard it before. And this is purely not a knock on Bevo. It's just a function of time.
So what Bevo needs is a writer.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
I know someone.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. I can. What
Imagine, I think there's actually something to that. We should, I think that's a product we could sell.
Yeah, just for
maybe not comedy. Maybe well, a lot of these, like, put it this way, a lot of these coaches need to be more likable.
Yeah.
So give them a few jokes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Start the week, and then we'll get someone else in, like maybe like a Stephen King or something, to do the like pre-game writing.
You mean the author Stephen King?
Yeah,
not
the
the we bring in Dan Brown and J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, we'll just rotate between the biggest writers in the world. Every week.
That'll work.
And then, when there's a big final, bring in Matthew Riley and just talk about, hey, there's going to be 1,000 people dead at the end of the game.
I love Matthew Riley.
Yeah, I loved him growing up. I Station. I was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, 7 Ancient Wonders, my favorite.
Yeah, true.
Great
Very
series.
Good. There's like 15 books in that as well.
7. Anyway, I mean, how many questions do you want to? Do you want to? Are you happy with that being our answer? We don't know what happens with coaches hiring and firing and lists and stuff like. Okay, let me ask you this. This is a direct question, just from Chris wants to know: is Baz staying? Is Naughty staying? Is Tim staying? Do you know? I know you've got plausible deniability, but I know you got insiders at the club. Can you give us any?
I know very little, and I mean
hard evidence.
No, and I don't know. I don't know anything, to be honest. But I saw, from what I understood, Naughty came out, or his young manager came out and said, well, he's not going anywhere.
Well, definitely one of our listeners saw him at a pub and he said, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, so
there was that too. But I think Colin Young said something. I think he's got Colin. Yeah.
Cool, that's one.
Pretty sure he said he's staying. And I haven't asked him, because I would never ask a player that I kind of know and be like, hey, give me the incriminating evidence. I also talk about your club.
We can barely get Naughty on the pod. So
we haven't even tried, to be honest.
I mean, let's get him on.
No, we'll get him to do the announcement.
That's a great idea.
But I haven't heard anything about Tim. I think the rumours of Baz have been floating around. And look, here's my encouragement to everyone. When you read a headline, think about who it actually benefits. So when you see headlines floating around about, this player's he's disgruntled, he's not getting enough of X or whatever it is, like he's not getting time in the midfield, or he doesn't feel like he's valued, or what he wants to be in the leadership group, or whatever the story is. A lot of the time that comes from their managers, right? And their managers are just starting to sow the thoughts in other clubs' minds to say, he's available. Start working out how you're going to pay him.
Yeah. Then we can ask the Bulldogs for more money.
That's right. Well, either way. So it's either to, up his price to stay, and, many players, unfortunately, I don't know if money, I'm sure money's going to be a part of it for Baz, no doubt. And this is purely speculation, but I think he's probably pretty set. And so knowing how much he loves footy, I'm sure he wants to look back at his career and go, I was the player that I wanted to be going in. So if he feels very strongly, which is what's been reported, that he wants to play in the middle of the ground and they're not giving him that time, then I don't think money will be the biggest factor that gets him to stay. It'll be assurances that he's going to play in the middle of the ground.
You said last week on the Patreon episode, why players want to be in the midfield. Can you reiterate that for our free-to-air listeners?
I think this is a really clear thing that's gone wrong, and it's stopped the development of many players. And again, I'm not saying I know better, and retrospectively, looking back, it's always easier than planning going forward. But I remember a time when obviously we played with the Bulldogs, we had a lot of players going through the middle of the ground. And the reason why that's so important is not just because the theme of the day in 2016 was let's overwhelm teams with our energy around the ball. Because if you've got 15 blokes going through there, or 13 or 12 or whatever it was, we're going to have more energy than 5 or 6. It's just going to be the case. The other part is 90%, and this is an absolute guess, but this is what I've seen, is 90% of players who get drafted who are 6 foot or under, or 6 foot or around, and now it's probably more like 6'2", I suppose, were midfielders their entire junior careers, because that's where the best players play.
Yep.
And as you go through your juniors, you can imagine a pyramid where there's less and less spots across the leagues for midfielders to be midfielders. So some of them move to the wing, some of them go to half forward. Very few of them who are good enough to play AFL football didn't get drafted as midfielders still. Because by the time you get to under 18s, you're still playing, state level footy, you're still playing, Vic Metro, and if you're playing for Australia or the AFL Academy or whatever it's called now, there's enough spots for the best players, and they can get drafted from pick 1 all the way to pick 100 or whatever it is. But when you don't get the access when you're actually in the team, what happens? Say, take the Giants, for instance. When I was playing at the Giants, guys like John O'Rourke and Hoz Wiley and Zach Williams, who ended up at Carlton, and a few other guys were dominating in the NEFL, dominating, like 35 and 3 every week. And yeah, it was just so one-sided. But the moment that they would play 4 good games, they get picked in the side as a half forward instead of playing in the middle of the ground. And it's an incredibly different spot to play, and it's incredibly difficult to play at AFL level because the ball's always going over your head, or you're trying to defend and you're walking this tightrope, and I'm not trying not to get too technical, but essentially you're walking the tightrope between defence and attack all the time, and you're in the most exposed part of the ground because if the ball spits out of a stoppage, you can imagine the half forward's the first person who can either impact that defensively or needs to get back offensively. So over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, we haven't done that 12 person through the middle of the ground very often, if at all. So guys like Riley West and these new guys have come through, and the Toby McLeans of the world, they would have typically played 20 to 30% in the middle of the ground, which gives you confidence, which gives you access to the ball, which means you're always in the game. And instead, they've been scrapping away in the twos and then coming in to play these peripheral positions, which means they don't get to learn how to play midfield, and they don't develop as midfielders because we've had A-grade players in there over the last few years, and it's the Bonds, it's the Libbers, it's Trelaws, McRae.
And what happens if we put someone like Bont at half forward for a bit?
Well, that's the thing. It's unlikely to impact Bont as negatively as it is likely to impact positively the other players, right? Is that you can carry one player in the middle of the ground, but the problem, it's just the fact that if you have 3 players who can play in there and they're the ones you trust without a doubt, and it worked for a period of time, which it did, certainly worked. In 2021, it worked beautifully. What happens if one of them gets injured? What happens if one of them falls off? What happens if they get older? That's the issue.
I'll tell you what happens. Then the media start having this story, which is they rely on these players too much. And that's exactly where we're at now.
Yeah, and the problem is that the real void is not in those players dropping off; it's in the development of the other players below them.
Yeah,
because you can't. So I think I said this on the podcast too. In the NFL, I was listening to an expert talk about it the other day, and he's been a coach and a GM, and his last name's Lombardi, which is the name of the trophy.
Nice,
so that's
of course.
it. Yeah, makes sense.
His grandson.
Yeah. He said he thinks it takes 25 games for an NFL quarterback to be up to scratch. And either at that 25 game mark, they either make it or they don't. Mm-hmm. 25 games is a season and a half in the NFL.
Yeah.
And likewise, it probably takes a season and a half at least of these guys getting regular and somewhat substantial midfield time to work out how to do everything right. Because, you know, when you're playing against a big ruckman is different compared to playing against an athletic one versus a strong midfielder versus a quick, fleet-footed midfield versus one that's very attacking versus one that's like Melbourne who are, they don't do anything defensive a lot of the time because they're so confident that Gawn will hit the ball to Petrarca or to Oliver and they'll kick a goal. Yeah. So they're all very different. And being able to play against all of those teams is something that takes a long time to learn and to perfect. And unless you've got the stoppage on tape or the footage on tape, you're just guessing. And it's not transferable from the VFL to the AFL because the guys in the VFL are one half of as the quickness and the strength and the size. Yeah. So that I feel like is from a tactical point of view is the thing that stood out to me most in the last 5 years. And again, I think it's hindered some players' development for sure.
Okay. So that's good. This is good proper.
But at the same time, this is the stupid thing about it. If Bontlipper and Jacko continued to dominate and got us to a grand final in 2021, which they did, and we'd won, everyone would be like, it was the right call.
Yeah.
So this is the edge that the coaches walk, and it's so hard.
The difference between sanity and genius is success.
Yeah. And it's also, it's the, do you try and win today, or do you try and, win it all today? Well, or do you try and, be decent forever? Like, no one cares about decent.
Yeah, it's right. Making a prelim doesn't really.
My life would be drastically different right now if we hadn't won in 2016.
That's true.
And the club would be drastically different, and we'd be thought about. You know how much media scrutiny we'd be getting right now if we hadn't won in 2016? A lot less.
0. Yep.
No one cares.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Well. I mean, there's other questions we can ask. I mean, even guests of the show are asking things. We had Kerry, the Bulldog Tradition. She's asking why were we unable to achieve sustained success after 2016. We only genuinely we have, during the Beveridge era, let's be brutally honest, we have only genuinely contended for 3 seasons. 2015, hey, we were right up there. If there hadn't been a game plan leaked, allegedly, we would have gone to semi-finals, knocked off Hawthorn, gone all the way. 2016, obviously, the best year ever. 2021, but 17, 18, 19, 22, 23 now. That's they're not great.
So we didn't make finals in any of those other years? We did in 20.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah. That was
St Kilda.
Yes, where we...
Again, it's like... This is the average thing.
Oh, we made it in 19 where we got flogged by the Giants.
Yeah, and this is the averages thing, right? So, like, again, they look at coaches, and this is, like, I suppose, at the end of everyone's careers, they should look at averages to work out it's the only fair metric, right? In terms of win-loss percentages, how long they lasted, how many games they coached. Like, they're just, static points in time.
Yeah.
But, there's a big difference, I suppose, between the experience of, like, let's say, Dimmer had again, I'm extrapolating this and I'm not exactly sure what these numbers are, but let's say Dimmer's first 5 or 6 years, he had a bit of a tough time, right?
He did, yes.
So then they win 3 out of 4, and then he has a drop off at the end. His averages probably don't look incredible. They look all right. Mm-hmm. I guarantee he looks quite good, and I'm sure he has a winning percentage. But is that the story of his coaching career? No, the story of his coaching career is that he took a club that hadn't won a flag in a long time to 3 premierships in 4 years and to be one of the greatest runs in the history of the game. Yep. That's the story. It's not the averages. So, and again, it's like if we win in 21, Bevo's suddenly gone from taking a club that was in nowhere to winning 2 flags in 10 years with a club that's very small and with not a lot of funding compared to some of the big clubs. That's a vastly different story to we won 1 in 16 and then things just didn't work out since.
Yeah, and there's a great question. I'm trying to find the person who did it. Here we go, Piano Joe. Are we just extremely entitled and ignorant of the fact that Bevo has accounted for half of the club's men's grand final appearances? And I'll answer this because this is more a fan thing than a player thing. Problem with winning grand finals is they're a bit moreish. It's a bit like heroin. We're never satisfied. We are satisfied. We won the grand final, but it's not like we were there in 2017 going, it doesn't matter if we don't make finals or whatever that. There is a little bit of that. Like it is a different mindset of going from 0 to 1 in our lifetime was huge. But going from 1 to 2, it's like, I would have liked that. And it's never, we are entitled, but we also give up a lot of our hard-earned time and money to watch these. So why not want the best?
Can I tell you how many Giants fans were entitled when I was playing for them in 2014?
Well, both of them?
Zero. And this is the point, right? The point is how many North Melbourne fans are entitled at the moment? How many Hawthorn fans at the moment?
Oh, all of the Hawthorn fans are entitled. You can't pull that one.
Okay. Richmond, definitely. Melbourne, probably now.
Yep. No, every club feels entitled.
I disagree. I think that there are certain clubs, and St Kilda. I would see us and St Kilda, and even North Melbourne to a degree from a club size point of view. We were probably in a similar realm, and it's changed a little bit where we've grown, and St Kilda have grown a little bit, and then North have kind of gone backwards.
Yeah.
But at least the way I think about them, the entitlement for your club means that the club has given them something to be entitled about. And I think that the fans should continue to hold the club to the highest standard because we've shown in recent times, much more recent than most clubs, that we can win it all and we can be in there at the last day in September.
Yeah.
So I would rather have entitled fans who expect us to win than unentitled fans who just whinge and complain, like Carlton. Yes, Carlton fans are always upset. They're not upset because they're entitled. They're upset because they've just been through the ringer for the last 28 years. So, I'm a big fan of the club being held to account around, we should win. We've got a great list. We've got one of the we have what I believe will be the best player to ever play for the Bulldogs, captaining our club and has been there for the last 11 years or 10 years.
And we should be entitled about the fact that we should be winning grand finals whilst also helping the community and being a fight for good in the city of Melbourne, which we are.
Yeah.
So, be entitled because we support the best club in the world.
Yeah. And if you've watched, the challenge is when the entitlement gets out of hand, and especially at the executive level, there's a few clubs have obviously gone through big board upheavals in the last few years. That's like when this stuff gets out of hand. But it's not about the fans. It's about those. They're different. That's people who want to be directly involved. Fans should never want to be directly involved. I guarantee for all the fans that are listening, we love you to absolute bits. Both as fans of our podcast and also of the club, you don't have the answers. You don't have the answers to the club. You have the answers in terms of the passion and the desire and the commitment and all of that stuff. And that's you are the reason the club has survived.
I know a fan that got involved and wrote a premiership banner.
Yeah.
One or two. So some of us can help.
But my point being is that don't listen to people who aren't from our club about what the answers are because they don't care. They care about causing anguish and antagonising people.
Oh, so you're talking about your Corns and your Wilsons.
Yeah, I mean, they don't benefit from people. They don't benefit from solutions. They benefit from problems.
They benefit from us arguing about it and giving them clicks and look at this article that they wrote and yeah.
I think we've got time for maybe 4 or 5 quick fire questions. I'm not going to answer them in as such elaborate.
Well, a lot of them they're very much the same questions over and over. What sort of player would you be looking for in the draft here, Boydie?
What sort of player? Where are we going to pick sort of 10th? We're not going to get a key forward at 10th. We don't need one. We don't really need a ruckman.
Definitely don't need a key forward. We got Naughty and Jamar.
I think we need some size down back. Our backs,
We're bringing in Crofty's son. Crofty was a great tall defender.
Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about his son, but if he's tall and he's a defender, that's good. Because he'll be father-son, obviously. Steve
McPherson's son, who we said no to, is doing very well.
At the Gold Coast. Where's he moved?
He's somewhere at VFL level, but I think he got...
he's a small forward.
Yeah, he's I know.
Good kid,
I'm such a romantic that I always just want the father-sons to get in.
Yeah, I think what we're missing down back, if I think about it, is we're missing that... we don't have a lot of runway with our key backs. Jonesy had a great year, but he's 34 or whatever. Let's just be honest. He's closer to the end than the beginning.
Yes.
Keithy's signed for one more. Yep. I think there's a good fair argument that that'll be his last. What we are missing, I feel like, from the way we've always played, is we don't have one of those dynamic sort of mid-sized intercept marking defenders at the moment.
Like an Easton Wood type?
Sure, Easton, but there's been other players, Cross when he was playing good footy.
Yeah.
There's Bob. Bob, even, Dale. These guys who can kind of play big and small.
Yeah.
We haven't had one of those in a while. And I feel like that, that ability to intercept, particularly in front of the big forwards who have historically gotten a bit of a hold of us, is always a good thing. I mean, even Zane was quite good at it for a long time.
He was, yeah.
He wasn't always the best player that we had, but he's been playing some good football for St Kilda now.
Yeah.
So I think someone like that would be really useful. I think we're a bit light on the wings as well, which I think we've shown, especially with speed.
Although credit to Oscar Baker,
he's had a good year,
and Jones.
Yeah. So
and Lobb played probably his best game against
He
Geelong.
probably played his best couple of games the last 2 weeks of the year, in my opinion. And I didn't see every game, so I'm not smashing Rory. But Rory's in a tough spot because it's like, where does he fit? And I don't think he's shown that he's going to be the best key forward down there. And again, he's 32.
All right, yeah.
Because he was drafted as a 21-year-old in 2013. So that would make him
31.
31 or something like that. A few years older than me. So, I where does he fit? And I've said the same thing about Rory the whole time. It's like, if Rory could really work out how to be a super big asset in the ruck, he would be worth every second of every game that he plays. Because Tim's doing a great job. If you can give Tim a chop out, and let's just say, and again, I'm purely hypothesising, Tim's last 6 weeks weren't his best 6 weeks. And that happens when you're the only ruckman for the whole year.
Of course,
almost exclusively. Like, it happened to Wilminson, it happened to Todd Goldstein, it happened to everyone.
Yes.
Who hasn't had a chop out, then they lose a bit of... Because it is, again, physically, it's the most demanding spot on the ground.
Yes.
So if you could take 10% a game off him and give Rory some more time and he could be really effective in there, which, again, I would say, judging by the fact that he's gone in and out of the side this year, they haven't found that he's been effective in there. I think that's the number one indicator for him, is that if he was decent in the ruck, he'd be in there every week, guaranteed. I think that he needs to sort of work out where he fits in. But there may be those two. So I think an intercepting defender who's can find his feet pretty quickly. So that takes a bit of athleticism and size and some kicking, because you can't kick, you'll get dropped. And then some speed around the ground, I think, sort of will always be helpful, especially in the way that the game's being played at the moment. We don't have those players like and again, like Hunter's playing. Hunter, I watched Lockie Hunter play yesterday. He played very, very well for Melbourne, or the day before, and he's got that ability to get up and down the ground over and over and over again.
Yep.
Which is very, very important as a link player. But yeah, I mean, that would be sort of the players that I'd be looking at.
All right. Is there any assistant coaches that are in the system that we should be targeting?
I got no idea about assistant coaches at all. Again, there's been a lot of change in there in the last. So there was stability for around 2015, 16, 17 in terms of personnel. Not in terms of position, because after 16 they changed the coaches' positions. They rotated everyone.
That was so weird.
I'm sure another club did it somewhere, and it was like, oh, this is the best thing to do to keep it fresh.
No.
But anyway,
just won the flag, you idiots.
Don't change the winning formula.
Exactly.
It's like there's such a balance between evolving and just ripping the floorboards up.
Just doing it for whatever.
But then since then, I mean, how many ins and outs have we had? We've had lots and lots of seniority move in and out of that place.
Apparently, here's some scuttlebutt for you, people. This is genuine scuttlebutt. And I'll tell you my source because it is not good. But one of our Patreons, he is quite active on Big Footy. And he says there's one particular poster. His whole family are doing it. His whole family are on there. They say there's this one poster who has never been wrong all year. And they've got a theory that he's a club insider.
He's on Big Footy, this bloke, right?
This guy's on Big Footy. This random person we don't know, Smiley Boy, is the Big Footy poster.
I've had my fair share of even as a junior, rumours on Big Footy.
Here we go.
And,
well,
they weren't accurate. So.
Well, this guy hasn't been wrong apparently. So yeah, this is what I'm telling you. This is the level we're going to give you. We're not going to say
this is full blown Nuffy.
Totally.
Dark days of September.
Yeah. Have been told only Bevo and Lade will remain on the coaching staff. The rest will be shown the door. That includes Matt Innes. We're standing by Bevo as Bont believes in him, and they're just going to build a better structure around him.
Okay, let me just work through that. So Matt, so no coaches will remain except for Brendan Lade.
Yep.
Who is a seasoned veteran.
Yes.
And was a ruckman.
Crozier was talking him up last week.
And he played under Jocko for a long time.
Okay.
So if that doesn't leave you with a few calluses. So, I think, look, he's a senior player, a person we haven't, and look, Kingy was really quite strong. Like we've had a few guys who ended up being quite senior, but have obviously since departed as they, seek out their own senior coaching positions, presumably. So you have that. And then Brendan Lady's staying. Matt Innes is the high performance coach who's been there for, I want to say, he's been in charge for 9 years.
Okay.
Almost 10, probably, because he took over from Justin Cordy as an interim, and then they ended up giving him the position. And he was big in terms of bringing Bevo's sort of, I would say, philosophy of training to life around we don't just need to, we're not track athletes, we're footballers. So how do we integrate the extra additional conditioning? You don't have to say extra and additional, but felt like it at times. Tell you what, when I wasn't fit, it felt like it. Into the training drills so that you didn't have to just like run for an hour and train for an hour. It's like, how do you integrate it to make sure that you're kicking under fatigue and all that stuff? Really, really
nice.
good. I'm a massive proponent of that philosophy, and I think it's been very useful. But then the rest of the coaches, so who would that be? So there's Matt Spanger's there.
Yeah, Bubba's obviously
Jamie
going.
Maddox, Rowan Smith's obviously, they're saying it would be gone. And this, who else? Webb.
Yes.
Who am I missing? I feel like there's one more.
I don't know. You know him better than me.
So, I mean, again, we haven't heard or seen a lot from any of those guys, I suppose, over the course of the last little while.
No, but they didn't do too much media.
Yeah,
anyway.
but the other guy, I feel like the other guys used to. Like, Stephen King used to do media almost every week, like especially pre-game. Gio did.
Yep.
Anyway.
Gio, the cameras always want Gio, though. He's a handsome
He's
man.
such a handsome man.
We should get, if we do get rid of Bevo, I think Gio would be my number one choice. But again, that's just because I'm a stupid romantic. And I always want... some people are saying Bob should come over and coach. I'm like, isn't Bob like barely like sort of an administrator of the footy department?
I think he's like leadership consultant.
Yeah, I'm not sure Bob is the... Well, we love Bob.
I think he's like in kind of like a GM role, general manager.
Yeah. I don't think Bob's the... We'd love for Bob to come back.
He's not coaching.
But he's not senior coach. No. Bob, come back. You're very welcome.
Yeah, for sure. Come back and help.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look... Put it this way. Here's my thoughts on this whole thing. One, the whole point that they made at the end that is Bont believes in Bevo and that's why he's staying. Mm-hmm. Bont can believe in whatever he likes. As much as he's the most important player and arguably the most important figure at our club at the moment, he's going to have an input, not a say, you know, to who's the senior coach. Because players shouldn't pick their coaches, whether they're good or bad, right? Because it's just... the relationship is not the right one for you to have an objective thought about it, right? And Bont would be as close to objective as anyone because he's the best player and he's not having... There's not a lot of criticism of Bont's game going on, right?
No.
But having said that, that will be a decision made far and above, and rightly so above Bont's head. And it, as I said, it should be. And it should be done with a due process, which I always talk about and all that sort of stuff. But the final bit is... the comment that we're going to get rid of 5 coaches and just magically find 5 new ones that are going to work together well, you know, integrate into the club, know what we're about, pick up the game, like et cetera, et cetera.
Got to say, it sounds good.
Well, but like, in what world does that magically work tomorrow?
This one, hopefully.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. Like, it's like this stuff takes time. Like, the connection between the assistant coaches, both in messaging and game plan and the communication relationship with the players, that all takes time.
You seem to forget 2014. We were rubbish. We brought in Bevo. Suddenly we're not rubbish.
Yeah, but that was one coach, not 5.
Well, exactly. So it'll work 5 times faster.
Arguably it could be work 5 times slower. And especially given that, again, creating something. So even that coaching group. So Gia was a new coach. Joel Corey has been there, but was kind of newish. Stephen King, I think, they created something together, which is very different to what they're talking about now. Yeah. In that instance, they're saying, hey, it wasn't the main guy's decisions that were wrong. It was the mix of people below him that didn't. So we're just going to change the mix and hope that it changes the product.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm optimistic. And again, it very much depends who they are.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that that's magically going to change everything tomorrow. And again, this is a pure rumor. So
absolutely, yeah.
There's my point is there is some holes in there. Like, there's not that much time to find 5 good coaches or 4 good coaches.
Yeah.
We've already got 1 position vacant, so we've been looking presumably at the Rowan Smith replacement. What about the other 4?
Well, I have no idea how long these things take, how much due diligence.
Well, put it this way: there's probably there might be 20 coaches in the market, right? Maybe.
There you go. We only need 5
that are any good, right? And percentage of those 20, like, they're accredited coaches who have the history and experience to be considered senior assistants and proper, like, higher level assistants, not just people entering the coaching sphere for the first time. One, you've got to be able to afford them. That's a whole
Yeah,
nother
we got
problem.
the soft cap. Yeah.
Soft cap is more like the hardest cap in the world. Because every time you go over it, it costs you like $2.50 for every dollar you spend or something crazy like that. And then you've also got to find them and they've got to agree. And then they've got to agree on the mix and their responsibilities and their role and which part. Like it's a massive ordeal to get that done in 3 months, especially with, there's like head coaching change at 4 or 5 other clubs. They're going to all move all of their assistants too. Like, again, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's bloody hard.
But isn't it dumb, the optimism I have? I go, yeah, but we can do this. We can do this.
Yeah, I mean, if you could, but someone has to know everyone's availability, everyone's interest, everyone's contract status, and then you got to try and poach them. And it's like, whilst you're trying to poach Coach X, Y, and Z to do one part of the role, or maybe to do 3 parts of the role, they're also going, well, there's other clubs trying to poach Coach X, and this coach doesn't like Coach Y.
Yeah.
And again, that's why mass change is so hard to implement. It's easier to bring in one head coach and young coaches, which is what they often do.
Yeah.
Because the experienced head coach will train up the assistants, is the theory, I suppose.
Yeah. The best coach currently in the world, Ange Postecoglou, he never brings assistants with him. He just goes and does it himself.
Which means that he doesn't ask the assistants to do much, right?
Well, he's just so set in his way.
Yeah,
He
that's
knows
what I'm
his own
saying.
game plan so well. And
Set in their ways sounds like coaches.
Yeah.
But that is it. So for every coach that's set in the right way, is about 400 of them set in the wrong way.
That's true. Can we just get Ange in? Apparently, him and I'm sure Tottenham aren't paying him that much.
I did hear Robbie Williams singing. He's been everywhere singing songs. No one must be listening to his.
Robbie's coming out here in November. I've got tickets. But Robbie, no, I got to say, I know this is a Bulldogs podcast, and I talk about Ange Postecoglou too much. Do you know my daughter genuinely thought Ange Postecoglou was the Prime Minister?
Oh, really?
She thought Albo was short for Ange Postecoglou.
I'm sure he could do it.
Man, he'd be awesome.
Yeah. Imagine him just bullying the whole parliament.
Him in Question Time. Like, yeah, mate, it's pleasing. It's a good budget. We're doing okay. What was I going to say? But yeah, no, the Robbie Williams singing about Ange Ball. The best Ange Postecoglou chant that Tottenham have come up with is to the Wenger boys. I don't know if you've heard it. Postecoglou, he rode his kangaroo to London from Australia. He's Tottenham Hotspur save. Yeah,
I think that's the one that I haven't heard. I've heard the other ones, which are like there's is it Angels or one of Robbie's?
Yeah, that's the Robbie one. Yeah. We're loving Ange Ball instead.
I was like, this is pretty good.
It's all right. Yeah, it's no fun.
It would sound good with thousands of fans singing it.
Yeah. That's something they have. Whenever Australian footy fans try and bring in singing, it's terrible.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't work for our game because our game is too fast.
Yeah,
and too much going on.
That like deviates for you from doing one chant.
Yes,
like when they're just kicking it around halfback or whatever they call it in soccer.
Then you can fire up. But yeah, and look, I've been to games in Europe. Those fans just don't watch the game; they just sing.
Yeah,
which is great for the atmosphere. But I couldn't do it. I'm there to watch the sport.
It's like when there was someone getting asked about this the other day, and they're like, or I saw a video on it, and they're like, "Oh, so you don't have an opposition pen?" And they're like, "Pen? What do you mean?" He's like, like a completely demeaning and like dangerous part of the ground that you lock fans in so they have to suffer their way through the rut.
We do have to mention a couple of big games this weekend. Look, the men's seniors season is over, but the Footscray.
Yeah, Footscray. I was about
We're
to
in the finals. Yeah, we play Casey at Box Hill City Oval on Saturday at midday. I wonder if I can pop in. I'll see if I can get away with the... Anyway, I'd like to go to that. But also, the AFLW, of course, starts on Saturday night. We were supposed to be chatting to... we requested Ellie Blackburn or a few of the senior players, but they're all getting ready for round one. So here's an official statement. This is actual proper journalism. There's an actual statement from assistant coach Nikki Callanan, friend of the show.
We'll leave this right at the end, so everyone has to listen all the way to here.
Players are raring to go, looking forward to finally starting their season after an off-season and a pre-season. I said, that's rubbish. Give me something better.
Yeah. What?
And she just went, I don't know, just say something like, dogs are bigger than cats.
Now imagine Nikki comes out with like a full-blown speech for the fan base, and then Berkey's like, what are you doing? Put it this way, if let's hope that they start winning and start playing well, because as soon as they do that, they'll give us guests every week.
Yes, that's what we want.
And if we're struggling, it'll just be us and Berkey.
You can do worse. We love Berkey. Thanks for listening, everyone. We know we didn't answer many questions, but a lot of them were the same, and we thought we'd take them head on.
We'll be covering obviously some version of what's happening from a trade and results, and we won't be spending a bunch of time on the rumours, I would say, but once actually things start to happen,
yes,
I think talking about what that means and where we can get to, because I think that'll balance out obviously updates from the W as we go through the next little while, which we would encourage everyone obviously to be as supportive and invested in as possible, because hey, why would you want to watch the man at the moment? We're not playing. We haven't been playing well. 2, now we're not playing at all. So we might as well watch some of the other Bulldogs play.
I mean, you diversify your sportsfolio. Get behind the girls.
Yeah, it gives yourself diversifying portfolios is good for one thing: mitigating risk of failure. You know, because more tickets to the show that you have, the more likely you'll see the show you want to see.
Exactly, that's what you want to do. Also, get involved in the Patreon. It's only $5 a month or more if you want some extra perks. But we are a bit more brutal, honest there. I know I was very emotional last week, and interestingly, we got a new Patreon. So, inner sanctum, high up person at the club who did listen to my emotional ranting and has given feedback. So, but hey, if you want to get, because we also chat to the Patreons a lot more.
Yeah.
Now that we've got the ear of someone very, very high up at the club, possibly the highest, get involved in the Patreon, and opinions will be shared. So yeah,
through a filter.
Well, sure.
It's a bit of it's more like a colander, not a sieve. It's a bit more of a sieve that we deal with at this level, where it catches a lot of the juicy bit. What we promise always, and I promise this, is to make sure that whatever I feel that I can safely and effectively, and from a value point of view, deliver to the fans in terms of insight, I will always try and do that. But having said that, just remember, if I'm not saying something, it's not because I'm trying to hide it from you. It's because I don't think you need to know. You know, I think that the club. Yeah. Again, I want them. Me and Danny had a text message session about this. We both want the club to do so well as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And the fans should be updated and involved and respected. And informed better than they have been, but giving every detail about what's going on in the club is not going to be helpful.
No. You just trust us. And hey, you'll know in time. You will know in
that'll
time.
Help.
There's a statute of limitations. If you want a juicy story from 10 years ago, what's your statute of limitations?
Well, if it's 10 years, I can start telling stories next season.
All right.
Only on the Patreon.
Done. There you go. If you want to hear the juicy gossip of the 2014 season, we'll drop it right now. We'll drop it very soon. Just join up, okay? Anyway, good luck to the girls. Good luck to the twos. Good luck to you, Boydie, and just life.
Yeah, thanks, mate. You too.
See you next week.
I gave my childhood to that roar of the red, white and blue sea, and the knowledge that you had two loves, the Bulldog boys and me. 20 years on, I feel that longing hanging in September air. But the reason I go every week is to pretend you're still there. And they will find the glory one day, and I will throw it at your feet. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets.